At the height of the city's most exclusive gala, where chandeliers glittered like captured stars and every glass sparkled with champagne, Isobel hadn't expected to stand out. She wasn't one of the socialites draped in diamonds, nor the heiresses who treated the night as their personal runway. She was simply there on a borrowed invitation, her sleek black dress chosen for elegance, not extravagance. Yet sometimes fate has its own plans. From across the ballroom, Carson's eyes found her. Billionaire investor, untouchable in every circle and known for dismissing women as easily as he signed deals worth millions. He wasn't supposed to look twice. But something about Isobel stopped him cold. The way she laughed with quiet defiance as if she belonged despite the whispers around her. The way her gaze brushed his once, then deliberately turned away, igniting a fire in him no business conquest ever had. For the first time in years, Carson wasn't thinking of profits or power. He was thinking of her. And as the orchestra swelled and the night deepened, he made a silent vow. Isobel would not be another face in the crowd. She would be the woman he couldn't let slip away, even if chasing her meant tearing down the walls he'd built to protect himself. Because sometimes, a single glance at a gala can rewrite an entire destiny. The invitation isn't mine, but the name on it is. Isobel. Black ink, borrowed grace. I press it to my palm like it can steady my pulse and step beneath chandeliers that blaze like captured constellations. The air tastes of citrus and chilled metal. Strings shimmer. Laughter lifts and fractures on crystal. Everyone shines here. Sequins, watches, teeth. And I try not to look like a woman measuring the cost of a room. My heels click, and the sound feels too loud. I slow, smooth the front of my dress, and let my shoulders learn the posture of belonging. Tobias taught me to hold a wrench and a promise at the same time. Tonight, I'm holding a lie and a prayer. That one conversation might change the trajectory of my small, honest firm, bleeding out one invoice at a time. I hover at the perimeter where servers arc by with silver trays, where the marble is cool under the hem of my dress, and the hedge of gossip thins enough to breathe. Perfume drifts, jasmine, something peppery, and the scent slides into memory. My father's workshop, my hands steady despite the rattle of an old compressor. Measure twice, he'd murmur. Cut once. I measure the exits. I measure my courage. A quartet unspools a familiar waltz, and couples become choreography. Phones rise, smiles sharpen. I sip sparingly, unwilling to blur a single edge of this night. If I am seen, let it be clean. If I fail, let it be without debt to anyone but myself. He notices me before I'm ready. I don't catch him first. I feel him, like the room has shifted its center of gravity. There's a pressure you only learn by standing on factory scaffolds and in quiet banks. When attention lands, the air thickens. I lift my eyes and find him across the ballroom, stillness cut to fit around his shoulders. Black tie uniform. Unmistakable presence. Carson. The name rips through the murmurs like a current. Deals orbit him. Empires add themselves when he lifts a pen. His expression isn't friendly. It's focused, as if he's studying the fault line beneath a city and deciding whether to build or walk away. For a beat that stretches, he doesn't blink. I'm used to being scanned. Outfit, posture, pedigree guessed in 3 glances. But this feels like calibration. Not who brought her, but what is she made of? Heat climbs my neck. I refuse to touch it. I hold his gaze longer than is polite, long enough to test if it's a trick of light. It isn't. He's really looking, the way my father used to look at an engine on the brink, listening with his eyes. My pulse stutters, then squares. I blink first, deliberately, a small refusal, and turn toward the nearest chandelier like a jeweler verifying cut and clarity. If he wants a second look, he can earn it. The floor vibrates with applause. A woman swathed in crimson silk steps onto a low dais, smile diamond bright. Marisol, her name hovers in whispers, legacy and expectation braided into each syllable. She thanks benefactors, descends, and moves through the crowd like a tide. Her gaze lands on me, pauses, prices me, moves on. The sting is surgical, not mortal. I let it teach me posture, not worth. Isobel? A man with a foundation badge appears at my elbow, one of the junior executives from a panel last fall. Relief loosens something between my ribs. He asks about my work. I answer with the most specific truth I can give without inviting condescension. He leans in, intrigued. The rehearsal pays off. 5 polished sentences and a question that turns him thoughtful. When he drifts away with a card and a promise, I exhale carefully and tuck the card like a lifeline into my clutch. Across the room, Carson speaks to no one. People speak to him. The difference is visible, their bodies angle toward him. His weight remains centered as if he won't surrender balance for praise. He should be bored. The bored rich have a particular slackness in the jaw. He isn't. He's watching who isn't performing. I feel the line of his gaze return and resist the urge to check if my lipstick has migrated. Kendra's last text hums against my thigh. Don't get enchanted. Eat something. Breathe. I smile, and the smile is mine. I bite a pastry, airy and lemon bright, and force myself to notice the small things. The violinist's frayed bow hair, the tiny chip on a marble step, the way the lighting designer made every woman look like an answered wish. These details are anchors. The alternative is floating. First time? A server murmurs, professional sympathy wrapped in crisp linen. Is it that obvious? Only to those who remember theirs. He winks and glides away, and the kindness steadies me more than the champagne. The MC calls for a toast. Glassware sings, high and crystalline, 1,000 little bells. I raise mine like a prop and let the alcohol kiss but not claim me. As the speech swells toward philanthropy, toward the audacity of vision, toward names that open doors, I feel Carson cut through the crowd. He doesn't hurry. The room adjusts to his path without realizing it. People turn, conversations tilt. He stops within a small radius of my oxygen. Isobel, he says, as if he's known my name longer than a glance would allow. I should ask how he knows it. I do not give him the satisfaction. Carson, I say, because everyone knows and pretending not to would be a performance this dress cannot sustain. Your attention keeps finding the lights, he says. They're honest, I reply. In what way? They make no promise they can't keep, I say, and tip my chin toward the chandelier. Weight, tension, load. Beauty that pays its own bills. The corner of his mouth acknowledges the answer without becoming a smile. You test things. Before I trust them. And me? He asks, light as a coiled spring. We haven't established the load-bearing capacity. A laugh sparks in his eyes, quick and unguarded, gone before it can be counted as evidence. The sound turns his face human, then the mask returns. Not a lie, a habit. For a moment, we stand in the eye of the Gala, where the noise thins and the air is warmer. I become aware of my heartbeat, not from fear, but from aliveness, the kind that makes you feel your edges. Marisol appears, too flawless to be accidental. Carson, she purrs. They're waiting. Her glance sweeps over me like a scanner programmed for deletions. He doesn't move. Are they? He says, but his eyes stay with me. The silence that follows is thin and sharp. I could disappear to make it easier for both of them. I don't. Borders have exits, but they're not the only places to stand. Enjoy your speech, I say to Marisol without looking away from him. It's only a few words, she says, resheathing her smile. Some of us know how to make an entrance. Some of us know how to make an exit, I say softly, and excuse myself from a conversation that would swallow me whole. I drift, but not away. I choose a vantage by a mirrored column where I can watch without being watched. Carson lets himself be reclaimed by a committee of admirers, but the cord between us doesn't sever. It stretches. A tether, not a chain. My cheeks cool. My hands are steady again. I think of Geneva, his cautionary tale if rumors are accurate, and wonder whether I'm seeing the ghost that built his walls or the man who wants to stop living behind them. I think of Tobias and the ledger he couldn't escape and how he taught me to reconcile columns without forgetting the names inside them. I think of what it costs to be looked at by a man the world refuses to deny. The toast breaks. The crowd exhales. I raise my phone, thumb hovering over Kendra's thread, and type without sending. He looked at me like I was a decision he could live with. A server passes with salted chocolate. I take one. Let it melt. Let bitterness and sweet share the same square inch without fighting. The chandelier above my head hums with the weight it carries and does not collapse. I lift my eyes and meet his again across a seam in the crowd, not by accident, not by fate, but by choice. My chin lifts one more degree. If this is a test, I am the one assigning it. I breathe in the scent of flowers kept alive by money and will. I breathe out the first truth of the night. I do not belong here, but I am not leaving. What would you do if the richest man in the room couldn't stop staring at you? The chandeliers cast their ruthless glow across the ballroom, but beyond the glimmer, stories quietly rooted themselves in flesh and bone. Isobel carried hers in the set of her shoulders. Hard-working, independent, she had clawed her way through the kind of silence debt leaves behind. Her late father, Tobias, had taught her the dignity of honest work, but left her with ledgers that bled into Carson's empire like invisible chains. She hated the thought of being consumed by power games, of her name dissolving into someone else's shadow. Tonight, she dressed not to dazzle, but to withstand. Every step into this gilded world was an act of rebellion against the pull of smallness. Carson stood at the other edge of the room, brilliance masked by restraint. Billionaire, feared and admired in equal measure, he wore success like a well-cut suit, and scars beneath it no one could see. Geneva's betrayal lingered like smoke. Once he had given his heart, and she had turned it into currency. Since then, his walls had been impenetrable, his calculations precise, his emotions guarded. To the room, he was untouchable. To himself, he was unfinished. Around them, the supporting cast sharpened their edges. Kendra, Isobel's best friend, was not present here but pulsed in every message on Isobel's phone, protective, witty, the voice that steadied her. Kendra had warned her, "Don't let them turn you into prey." In the hush between music and applause, Isobel heard her friend's caution as if whispered in her ear. Marisol was the ballroom's chosen daughter, draped in entitlement and effortless diamonds. She had set her sights on Carson not out of love but legacy. To claim him would be to confirm her place at the peak of the city's social ladder. Every smile she offered was a polished blade, and every glance at Isobel dripped with dismissal. She saw in Isobel not a rival of substance but an intrusion that dared to breathe in her curated air. Dominic lingered near Carson, ambition cloaked in loyalty. As his business partner, he thrived in the empire's shadows, steering numbers and strategy with ruthless precision. What he feared most was not loss of profit, but loss of focus. Carson distracted meant Carson vulnerable, and vulnerability threatened everything Dominic had built at his side. Already he had seen Carson's gaze tilt toward Isobel, and he marked her as a disruption. His ambition left no room for disruptions. This was the foundation. A woman shaped by debts and independence. A man brilliant but scarred by betrayal. A best friend's protective wit at her back. A rival sharpened by entitlement. A partner wary of distraction. A father's unfinished life tying one destiny to another. The Gala glimmered above it all, but beneath the chandeliers these truths waited. The night would test them. The question was not whether they belonged here, but how far they would go before the walls they carried cracked. The chandelier's hum steadied into a note as the night assembled its next move. The ballroom, greedy for spectacle, waited. Marisol spotted the seam in Isobel's armor, the way a jeweler spots a flaw. She arrived with attendants and a smile that rehearsed mercy. "You're Isobel, aren't you?" she said. "I didn't see you on the registry." Isobel chose dignity. "The invitation is mine," she said. "The pathway it took to reach me is none of your concern." "Oh, but the Foundation's concern is precisely the point," Marisol replied, already gesturing. A coordinator, young, eager to do right, appeared with a tablet. Marisol angled the screen for an audience. "We're careful with security. It's so easy for the wrong names to slip in." The circle tightened. The coordinator searched, frowned. "I see the name, but the hash indicates reassignment." He faltered. "It was transferred twice." Marisol's eyebrows performed surprise. "Twice? How untidy." She let the word hover like a label. "Sometimes people borrow things that don't fit." Dominic, within earshot by design, did not intervene. He measured how quickly rumors could be monetized. Isobel did not sway. "Then the registry needs better shoes," she said, "because it's tripping over its own laces." The coordinator flushed. Onlookers brightened, scenting sport. Marisol pressed. "Security can escort you to clarify," she said. It sounded like help. It felt like exile. From omniscience, the facts are simple. Isobel accepted a donor's extra seat, vetted and legal if inelegant. A clerical shuffle made it look otherwise. Marisol exploited optics because optics are currency. From the floor, all that existed was embarrassment framed as etiquette. The chandelier poured blameless light on the moment of choice. Isobel could leave and keep her pride small. She could argue and be reduced to noise. Or she could stand, cornerstone still, and let the room learn something about weight. She opened her mouth. A stillness sliced between beats of music. Carson entered the circle without haste, proof that gravity prefers him. Conversations ceased. The coordinator stepped back, tablet dimming. "She's with me," Carson said. Not loud, clear. A sentence that rearranged the floor plan. Marisol's smile crystallized. "With you?" she repeated. Carson faced the coordinator, not Marisol. "Finalize her credentials," he said. "Mark her under my table." The coordinator nodded so fast the screen shook. "Of course, Mr. Vale." The room inhaled. It did not exhale. Carson did not perform warmth, he performed certainty. He turned to Isobel, and the certainty softened by degree. "My guest," he added, loud enough to be quoted. The word moved like current under glass. Guests are context. Guests are shielded. A path cleared where none had existed a heartbeat earlier. The orchestra picked up a brighter phrase. Isobel did not thank him. That would make her lesser. She met his gaze with measured acknowledgement and held her ground. The filament between them grew taut, not fragile. Marisol recovered in half a breath. "How generous," she said. "Carson never makes public declarations." She turned her head so the nearest dozen could carry it. Dominic felt the market swing. "Shall I alert PR?" he murmured, outwardly helpful, inwardly tallying headlines. "We can frame it as inclusion." "No," Carson said. "No framing." Marisol laughed softly. "Well then," she said. "Welcome, Isobel." The name wore quotation marks. She drifted away, planting versions. The bubble burst, conversations resumed. Isobel's pulse hammered, but her voice remained even. "You didn't have to do that," she said. "I don't allow my name to be used to humiliate people," Carson replied. A beat. "Especially when they're telling the truth." "How do you know I am?" "You stood your ground," he said. "Liars dance." The orchestra sent an invitation to the floor. Carson offered no hand. Isobel requested none. Yet rituals adapt. A hostess approached with the seating chart. "Mr. Vale, shall I—" "Under my table," he repeated, and the ink made it real. The gasp arrived. The true one, different in pitch and depth. It expanded like a ring in water. His table was not merely furniture. It was statement. Carson had never publicly placed anyone unknown in his inner circle. Photographers blinked. Board members recalculated. Junior executives learned a new math. The city's arteries carried what the ballroom made. Whispers threaded into cars, slid into diners perched beside editors. Carson claimed a woman in public. No announcement, just a sentence. She didn't bow. He didn't smile. Who is she? Isobel. No last name yet. Find it. Dominic stood where he could watch both Isobel and the doors. He pictured headlines bending, the stock shivering, the deal they'd been nursing requiring insulation. He composed contingencies and told himself he was protecting the company. Marisol crossed to a knot of heirs and poured the story at the angle that would harden it. A borrowed invitation elevated by pity, a gatecrasher washed clean by a billionaire's attention, a charity case wearing borrowed light. She did it with grace, which makes poison acceptable. Kendra, far from the ballroom, read a message forwarded by a friend who worked catering. Your girl just got claimed by the Ice King. She typed a single instruction. Stay steady. Don't let the crown define you. At the table that had become a thesis, Isobel took the chair offered. Carson took his. A visible calm settled over him, like a fortress accepting a new gate. He did not lean toward her or perform possession. He let the declaration do the work and allowed the room to teach itself what that meant. The chandelier hummed, the city whispered, and the whisper was this. For the first time, Carson Vale had put his name between a woman and the world world, trained to obey him, shifted. Whether that shift would shelter or swallow her was a question the night had only begun to ask. But the rumor outran the question, because rumors love conclusions. It arrived at midnight balconies and message threads and the ears of people who take bets on human hearts. Carson's might finally be caught. The gasp that crowned Carson's declaration did not dissolve with the music. It traveled, changed shape, and returned as expectation. By morning, the city wore Isobel's name like a rumor pinned to its lapel, and the ballroom's single sentence became a question that followed her shadow. Headlines guessed, threads speculated. In offices and boardrooms, people who had never met her practiced opinions. The story wanted ownership. Isobel refused to surrender authorship of herself. Carson answered the city with motion. Where tycoons usually dispatched assistants, he arrived in person. A courier brought lilies to her narrow office. Carson appeared an hour later with coffee he had clearly not fetched himself, but carried as if the gesture mattered. He admired the neat chaos of drawings on her wall, flow charts, cash flow projections, a stubborn list titled, Make It Through, then asked questions that proved he'd read every line. The second day, an invitation appeared on her phone for a gallery opening she had never planned to attend. The address matched the corner she cut through on her evening walk. Carson stood there at the exact minute she would pass, dressed like the city's idea of ease. He did not block the sidewalk or ask for dinner. He asked for 10 minutes. When she said 5, he kept it, then left a silence that felt like restraint rather than manipulation. Persistence looked different worn this way. Not demand, but presence that refused to vanish. In restaurants where reservations took months, a booth was somehow suddenly free when she arrived with Kendra. Carson would be already seated across the room with clients, his glance a silent bridge. At a hardware store, she reached for a torque wrench and found him doing the same. Amusement briefly unseating his composure when she corrected his grip and demonstrated exactly how Tobias had taught her. Isobel resisted because she knew the cost of being a man's novelty, a bloom pressed flat between pages he would never reread. She gave him rules: no chauffeurs, no bodyguards 6 feet behind her on a sidewalk, no surprises that rearranged her schedule. She refused meetings that would pad her portfolio with his name like an annotation. When he offered to smooth a vendor dispute, she said, "If you fix my problems, you'll expect ownership of the solution. I won't sell you my competence." He took the rebuke without flinching and left her with the feeling of having been seen rather than bought. He learned her coffee order and the exact cadence of her yes and no. He learned which silences were doors and which were walls. He answered texts in complete thoughts. He showed up when he said he would and stayed only as long as she allowed. He was relentless and careful at once, a contradiction that complicated her resolve. The city did not extend the same courtesy. Cameras learned her roots. A blogger posted a series called Who is Carson's Mystery and filled the blanks with glitter and guesswork until strangers thought they knew her. Another piece, less breathless, reached deeper. Public records of Tobias's debts, a shuttered subcontractor, a merger whose paperwork threaded like a trace of smoke into one of Carson's holdings. Photographs of the old workshop sat under a headline dressed as concern. Isobel read every line alone, then again with Kendra, whose fury folded into practical counsel. They're writing a story where you are the intermission before he marries someone palatable, Kendra said. We don't let them keep the pen. That night, under a sky too bright for stars, Isobel met Carson on a pier that remembered ships. Wind pressed hair to her cheek, gulls wrote jagged notes on the air that smelled of salt and iron. Your world is picking me apart, she said, handing him the article. He read without interrupting, lifting his eyes every few paragraphs as if to confirm she was real. The debt trail touches a shell we absorbed, he said at last. I didn't know. She held his gaze. It changes nothing and everything. I am not a narrative convenience or an unpaid invoice. He tucked the paper away carefully, like a document requiring custody. This is where you tell me to trust you? She asked. I don't ask for what I haven't earned, he said. I'll stand where the cameras can see me. I'll do interviews I hate. I won't rewrite your history. I will not let them use mine to erase you. She believed some of it and was angry anyway. The argument flared and cooled along the pier's boards, turning heat into clarity and certainty into questions neither could file away. It repeated 2 days later in a car that refused to find green lights, and again in a stairwell where proximity amplified honesty. Pride and fear litigated, attraction cross-examined. Chemistry threaded through the words until argument became a kind of gravity. They kissed for the first time where a city cannot follow. In the back corner of a museum elevator stuck between floors, laughter cutting the tension before mouths found purpose. It was not gentle, but it was careful. Dominic watched the trend line and saw risk dressed as romance. He cornered Carson in glass-bright conference rooms and in the private quiet of an office that smelled like cedar and resolve. We are inside the narrow window before the acquisition vote, he said. Your attention is an asset. Spend it where the return exists. You cannot let a personal project invite antitrust scrutiny by optics alone. He laid down words like guardrails, then like barbed wire. Optics aren't audit, Carson said. Optics move votes, Dominic replied. They move markets. Investors don't know her. They know you used to be smarter than this. Carson's gaze cooled a degree. I'm not negotiating my personal life with you. Dominic's smile never reached his eyes. I'm negotiating the company's future with its most unpredictable variable. Decide how much volatility we can afford. He left a file of talking points that read like warnings. Carson did not touch the folder for an hour. When he finally opened it, he closed it halfway through and dialed PR not to spin, but to set boundaries. No commentary about Isobel's past, no off-the-record cruelty, no friends close to Mr. Vale, speculating like cowards. Marisol, meanwhile, adjusted tactics. Ignored, she sharpened. She invited cameras to causes, wore grace like armor, and made remarks that sounded like condolence when she spoke of young women thrust into difficult attention. Isobel and Carson developed a language of thresholds. He would appear without entourage but announce himself from half a block away so she never felt ambushed. She would allow him to walk her home but not upstairs. He sent one extravagant gesture for every 3 practical ones. A rare first edition of an engineering manual Tobias loved, balanced by an introduction to a vendor who paid on time. She kept the book, refused the shortcut, and let him see why. Arguments continued because independence and protection are old enemies. Chemistry answered because truth doesn't always wear words. A second kiss happened in a freight elevator that smelled like dust and varnish. a third in a stairwell shadow after a fundraiser she left early, a fourth in her office at midnight when a spreadsheet finally balanced, and relief made room for yes. Stolen, all of them. Because the city wanted ownership and they refused to sign it over. The paparazzi fed, then starved, then fed again. When a shot captured Isobel leaving Carson's car at dawn, after a night of conversation and the exquisite ache of not crossing a line, the caption wrote its own fiction. She learned to let strangers be wrong. She learned that resilience is quieter than scandal, that dignity survives flashbulbs, and that saying no can be more intimate than surrender. He learned the courage it takes to be told to wait and the value of waiting well. Dominic's pressure did not slacken. He brought data and deadlines, a forecast shaped like an ultimatum. "If the vote wavers," he said, "I will do what's necessary." "Clarify necessary," Carson answered. "Whatever protects the company," Dominic said, and did not elaborate. Rising tension braided itself into their days. Persistence pressing against caution, affection against pride, the public against the private, the ledger against the heart. Through it, something older than rumor threaded steady. Two people learning the tensile strength of a bridge they had not intended to build, testing load, naming limits, risking anyway, while forces around them priced their feelings like commodities. The chandelier that began their storm still hummed somewhere above the city, asking its silent, patient question as they navigated corridors of glass and nights of wind and the mathematics of staying. Would you risk your heart to a man who could buy anything except love? Rain started without warning, a soft percussion on the pier's tin roof. Isobel had brought the file because truth should be handed over in daylight, but evening ran ahead of her. She set the folder between them on the rough plank table, its tab labeled with neat letters. Merger trail, Tavares subsidiary. Tobias's name misprinted there like a paper cut. "Open it," she said. Her voice was steady. Her hands were not. Carson did. Page by page, the arrows drew a clean, pitiless line. A subcontractor default, penalties, a distressed purchase folded into a shell, and finally an acquisition stamped with the crest of his empire. No malice, only machinery. The chain stopped at his signature. Routine then. Not routine now. That holding absorbed what ruined him, Isobel said. Indirect, yes. But the roof that leaked on our kitchen? The auction that took the lathe he loved? The nights he couldn't look at me because the ledger wouldn't forgive him? Weather spun by structures you own. Carson kept reading when there was nothing left to read. Rain broadened. "I didn't know," he said. Not defensive, not absolved. "You couldn't have," she said, two-edged. "But I needed you to see the map, to know which room I stand in when I say yes or no to you." He placed both palms on the table. "Your father—" "Tobias," she said. "He taught me torque and patience. He kept promises longer than sleep. He also signed things he shouldn't and trusted people he shouldn't, and the storm finished what pride began." She exhaled. Grief is honest. The bills kept lying after he was gone. Wind cut through the pier. He removed his jacket, held it out. She didn't take it. He set it over a chair, accepted the cold with her. "I can fix structures," he said. "Not the past." "No," she said. "You can decide what you build next." She tapped the folder. "Knowing this, what do you want with me?" A gull shrieked like a hinge. He had never answered to anyone's ledger but his own. He realized he wanted to answer to hers. "To be seen by you," he said. "And to see you, not as recompense, but as the person who stood still when I expected performance." Rain thickened. "There's something else," she said. "I know about Geneva." His breath paused. "What do you think you know?" "That she was exquisite at saying forever and efficient at leaving," Isobel said. "That she taught you to mistake generosity for weakness and privacy for safety. That you built a wall so tall even the parts of you that needed light couldn't scale it." He could have objected. Instead, he nodded once, a confession. "Geneva liked mirrors. I kept handing her myself to polish. When she walked away, the mirror stayed, and I learned to admire not needing anyone. He looked at Isobel. It hasn't made me better. Silence joined them. A buoy clanged. Isobel slid into the chair across from him. I don't want to be a corrective story, she said. I don't want to be the woman who finally teaches the billionaire to feel. You aren't, he said. You're the woman who teaches me to choose. She stared at the rain-beaded folder. I have spent years not needing anyone, she said. It isn't nobility. It's how poor people keep dignity when dignity is all the equity they have left. I'm afraid that if I step toward you, the world will say I stepped because of this. She touched the crest on the acquisition letter. Not because of you. He reached across the table, stopped short of her hand, and let restraint speak. Tell me how to stand next to you without erasing you. You can't erase me, she said. I won't let you. But don't buy my battles. Don't tidy my past. Don't talk about debt like fate. Stand where they can see you when they aim, and let me fight with my name unedited. He nodded. Will you let me fail at this, and learn, and fail again, and stay? That depends on whether you listen. Lightning showed them to each other. He rose, rounded the table. She did not retreat. When his fingertips found her wrist, it was a question, not a claim. She answered by turning her hand so her pulse met his skin. Come inside, he said. It's freezing. She stood. The pier office was small, walls lined with ledgers. A single bulb hummed. Rain lacquered the windows. The door closed with an old, trustworthy sound. They didn't rush. He noticed how she set her clutch on the desk like a tool. She watched him hang his jacket with unnecessary care. When they finally reached for each other, it was the way people step onto a bridge they have inspected, aware of the span, committing to the weight. Their mouths met with the relief of arguments resolved and the heat of fear told to wait its turn. He kissed like a man who had learned scarcity, she like a woman who never barters. Hands learned new grammar, his on her back, memorizing truth, hers at his jaw, rewriting what strength feels like when gentle. Clothes yielded at the pace consent likes best, deliberate, mutual. He said her name like a promise. She said his like a door opening from the inside. When they found their rhythm, the storm applauded, and the bulb glowed as if waiting for a purpose greater than light. After they lay on a braided rug that smelled faintly of salt. Breath slowed. Bodies learned the distance between hunger and home. She pressed a fingertip to the vein at his wrist. This doesn't fix anything, she said. No, he agreed. It tells us what needs protecting. Me? She said. Us, he corrected. And the room we make the city can't enter. The rain gentled. She turned to face him. The risk is bigger now, she said. Yes, he said. So are we. Rain thinned to mist by dawn. The first headline hit like a gavel. Ice King's new interest, a plant with perfect timing. A composite of Isobel near Carson's car bled across the page. The article called her a gold digger seated to distract him before a vote. Screens glowed in cafes and elevators. Strangers repeated, she played him. She wants the empire by way of the heart. Anonymous sources described a quiet arrangement. A grainy shot of Tobias's shuttered workshop captioned her as born hungry. Isobel read everything once, then again. On the second reading, she shut off the sound in her head and cataloged the lies like leaks. The photos were days old. The source misnamed her company. The contracts shown weren't hers. Precision could not matter, spectacle could. Kendra arrived with coffee and something sweet to argue with bitterness. We answer once cleanly, she said. Make them chase the truth. Isobel kept her hands flat. I won't let them turn Tobias into bait, she said. Across the river, Dominic watched metrics spike. He had timed the leak to coincide with pre-meeting briefs. The dossier fed to a whisper-happy blog never used his name. It used phrases like concerned shareholder and larger stability. The boardroom's temperature dropped with every refresh. He called Carson. "We need distance," he said. "A neutral line, focused on the vote, respecting privacy, not discussing personal matters." 30 words, then silence. "I won't feed her to the fire," Carson said. "You won't," Dominic replied. "You'll starve it. Defending a woman whose debts point into our structure is kindling. Defend her, you make it permanent. Hesitate, you preserve choice." Marisol took no meetings. On radio, she wished the young woman well and mused about sudden attention. At lunch, she told a photographer she believed in redemption. She did not light the match. She angled the wind. Isobel's phone would not stop. Investors went soft. Clients asked for statements. One suggested drafting something in Carson's office because optics might help. She smiled and said no. After the call, she pressed her knuckles into her eyes until stars rearranged. Carson texted, "I'm here if you want me there." If she said come, he would arrive. If she said don't, he would respect it. Neither answer changed that the world had written money over her name. Kendra paced. "He needs to stand in front of this," she said. "Make the story pay a toll." Isobel shook her head. "Then I am the toll. I won't be a bridge he buys in a public square." Dominic convened steering members. "We are inside a hostile narrative window," he said. "Volatility is amplified. The responsible course is to separate the company from the rumor. Our man is extraordinary. He is also human. We protect him and we protect the vote." "Does the woman pose a tangible risk?" a director asked. "Reputational drag is still drag," Dominic said. "If he anchors to her now, we inherit a storyline. If we guide him through, we inherit a win." Carson walked in uninvited. "You don't inherit me," he said, "and she isn't an error term." "Then choose her in private," Dominic answered. "Do not choose her on a microphone. Not today." The day chose for them. A network panel. Gold digger or girlfriend. A podcast guest who'd dated Isobel, then admitted he'd seen her across a bar once. An op-ed warned against mistaking opportunity for love. Carson drafted, then deleted, 3 statements. Twice he stood to go to her. Twice he sat because the company needed him at the wheel. When the press note reached his inbox, clean lines about focus and privacy, he stared until words unthreaded. He closed the draft. He did not send it. He also did not schedule cameras that would have made a defense irrevocable. In the space between, the fire ate. Marisol appeared where cameras live and let herself be photographed, placing a donation card into a lucite box. "I pray the young woman finds peace," she said softly. "Fame is a tide." The clip looped. At dusk, Isobel shut her office door, turned off the light, and sat on the floor with her back to the desk. When the phone vibrated again, she saw Carson's name and did not answer. She typed, "I need quiet." He wrote, "I'll wait." She turned the phone face down and cried, soundless. By night, the board had what Dominic wanted, a posture that could be read as prudence. He ended the day satisfied with an arithmetic of fewer variables. Carson stood at his window and watched rain begin again. He told himself he was protecting what they were building by not making it a headline. The sentence tasted like nickel. Morning crowned the pile with blue-collar to ballroom, inside her playbook. Arrows stitched Tobias's debts to Carson's signature. A subhead asked why a man so disciplined had gone soft. Isobel packed a bag, a sweater, a charger, the photograph of Tobias smiling with grease on his cheek. She left a note for Kendra, need air, and locked her office. The scandal could feast. It would not eat the last intact part of her. She walked until the city forgot its shape. At the river, she texted Kendra a pin and 2 words, "I'm out." Then she turned off her phone. Carson reached her door and found absence. The room held her orderliness like a scent. He pressed his palm to the frame and understood the math she had done without him. He had not defended her, he had not betrayed her, he had done nothing, and nothing had chosen for him. Marisol's friends toasted an evening managed. Dominic scheduled calls to reassure the anxious and one to suggest contingency. Kendra drove toward the pin, cursing lights. The night took them in opposite directions and became what the story needed, proof for some, doubt for others. In the silence between them, love learned how much damage hesitation can do, and distance became the only thing that didn't lie. Rain kept falling. Rain rinsed the city by morning, but the stain on Isobel's name remained. She woke in a rented room above a bait shop, made tea with a chipped kettle, and stared at the face-down phone. Silence was gentler than opinion. She dressed in a sweater and jeans and walked the dock until splinters taught her to feel again. Kendra found her by following stubbornness. She parked crooked, hugged hard, and didn't ask if she could come up. She simply did. They sat on the pier railing while gulls heckled the sun. "He saw you before anyone else did," Kendra said at last. "Not the dress, not the rumor, you. That's what scares him. Choosing you means breaking the system that protects him. But you didn't survive your father's ledger to be graded by strangers. Decide what you want, not what the world permits." Isobel watched the current drag a branch under. "What I want is not to need him to save me," she said. "What I want is not to be proof of anything." "Then don't be," Kendra said. "Be Isobel, who measures load before trust, who won't sell her competence. Love is a choice, not a bailout. He has a choice, too. Make him make it in daylight." Across the river, Carson wore the night like a penalty, replaying moments he had chosen caution over care. He heard Geneva's voice disguised as Dominic's. Protect the deal, starve the fire, outwait the storm. He stood at the window until the glass cooled his forehead and admitted the truth. He would lose someone real if he kept the pattern that kept him safe and empty. He left before dawn. In the car, he drafted statements and deleted them. He pictured microphones and realized his voice would matter only if it stopped sounding like press. He thumbed a message to Isobel and didn't send it. The harm had been public. The repair must be, too. By 9, reporters waited for updates on the acquisition that would crown his quarter. PR arranged reassurance. Dominic hovered like a pilot checking crosswinds. "We go on message," Dominic said. "Focus, performance. If they ask about her, decline comment. You cannot strap a fuse to this vote." "It already exploded," Carson said and walked to the elevators. Upstairs, the press room buzzed. Lights burned. Marisol occupied a front row seat not meant for her. Cameras feathered their lenses. Carson stepped behind the podium and removed his notes. "Good morning," he said. "You came for a deal. You'll get it later. First, I'm addressing the story you've been sold about a woman named Isobel." A murmur, low and electric. Dominic, back of room, felt the market tilt. Rumor dressed her as a plant, a gold digger, a strategy. She is none of those. Her father died owing money to a system I profit from. That is true. It does not excuse cruelty. I will not allow my name to be the instrument that humiliates her. A hand shot up. "Are you romantically involved?" "Yes," he said. "And if that ruins your headline, write a better one." "Did you place her at your table to influence charity optics?" "I placed her there because I wanted to eat dinner next to someone who tells the truth to my face." "As for the acquisition," the room leaned forward. "I'm postponing it." Air left the space in a sweep. "Postponing?" a banker barked. "This is a billion-dollar event. It can wait," Carson said. "My vote will not be purchased with a woman's dignity as the price. If our value relies on me pretending I don't love someone, we are misvalued." Reporters erupted. PR flinched. Dominic stepped forward. "Carson." "You want guidance?" Carson said. "Here it is. We will build differently. We will win deals without destroying people who never got an invitation to the table. Starting today, we audit human cost, not only financial." He left the podium. Outside, the sky had cleaned to a hard blue. Word traveled fast. Isobel heard the clip from Kendra, who pressed play with shaking fingers. Carson's voice filled the small room above the river. He said her name once, simply, respectfully. He said love like a verb. He canceled $1 billion. He asked to be judged by what he would build next. Isobel stood, sat, stood again. "He's late," she said. "But maybe he finally arrived." Kendra squeezed her hand. "He didn't save you," she said. "He met you." Across town, Dominic fielded board members who spoke in smoke and spreadsheets. Marisol drafted a caption about courage that still advertised her dress. The city split into camps and argued. Carson drove to the river without texting first. He parked, climbed the stairs, and knocked. When the door opened, he did not reach for Isobel. He put his hands in plain sight and let her look at him like evidence. "I was wrong," he said. "Restraint wasn't protection. It was fear wearing a suit. I postponed the deal. I defended you because you deserved defense, not because I expect forgiveness. If you send me away, I'll keep building what I promised anyway." Isobel held the silence until it became honest. "You broke your own system," she said. "I had help," he answered, a glance toward Kendra's shadow. She stepped aside. He entered the room that smelled like tea and river. No reporters, no podium, just wood, light, and two people who had run out of ways to pretend. The first touch was not a kiss. It was Isobel setting her palm against his chest, feeling the hard thud of a decision finally made. The kiss came after, brief and true. Later, they stood at the window while the tide braided into shining lines. "If you stay," she said, "you stay on terms that don't shrink me." "Or me," he said. "Or you," she agreed. They smiled the kind of smile that looks like work and hope signing a treaty. Today, would you forgive him after he almost let you go? The clip of Carson postponing the deal detonated through markets, but the real explosion came quieter. A leaked internal memo with language that mirrored the earliest smear, phrases like reputational drag and strategic distraction. Kendra sent it to Isobel with a single line: "Follow the fingerprints." Carson received the same memo from legal with a header he hated: potential source, Dominic Ellery. He didn't wait for counsel to pad the landing. He called an emergency board session in the glass room where he'd made his largest promises. The table glittered with caution. Dominic arrived composed, tie a blade, eyes already calculating the angles of survival. Carson began without a flourish. "We postponed because value without values is a bubble. Now we clear the air." He nodded to compliance. Screens lit. A timeline of the rumor's birth, a burner number feeding a blogger, payments routed through a boutique consultancy that only existed within the last quarter. The consultancy's registration agent tied to a fund in which Dominic held a silent stake. Then the email, the one that suggested seeding concerns about Isobel to tilt the vote, and Dominic's signature 3 lines down. Dominic didn't flinch. "Crisis management," he said. "You asked me to protect the company. I did. If the press shaped a narrative, I made sure it landed away from our balance sheet." "You aimed it at a woman," Carson said, voice flat. "At my woman." "At a risk," Dominic corrected. "The market loves you decisive, not distracted." Carson let silence become a verdict. "You leaked. You paid for the leak. You tried to control me by breaking someone who isn't for sale." He turned to the board. "I'm moving to remove Dominic Ellery for cause, effective immediately." The room tensed. A director cleared her throat. "The cost will be spectacular. His exit clause is a war." "Then we fight it," Carson said. "On the record." He looked back at Dominic. "You taught me to count. Count this. You're finished here." Dominic tried charm. "We built the skyscraper together," he said softly. "You proposed to jump off it because you discovered gravity?" "I propose we climb down," Carson said, "and build different." He signed the termination. Security appeared as if conjured, and for the first time in a decade, Dominic's smile didn't know where to go. He left with perfect posture and the ruined dignity of a man who mistook cunning for vision. The cost arrived fast and honest. Stock shivered. Analysts frowned on television. A class action attorney licked his teeth and said the word fiduciary like a summons. Carson accepted it all. He recorded a message to staff not crafted by a ghostwriter. We correct course. We choose people over shortcuts. If that shrinks us, it frees us. Marisol's collapse was more elegant. Texts surfaced, her confidences to a columnist about girls who gate crash on borrowed light, conveniently timed selfies at donation boxes with captions that aged poorly beside the smears receipts. Brands that loved her face preferred distance from her implications. A board seat she coveted drifted away on a smile that wasn't returned. She pivoted to contrition, but the city heard the hinge squeak. Isobel watched the unraveling from the dock's railing, wind knotting her hair. Kendra a loyal silhouette at her side. She didn't gloat. She didn't post. She warmed her hands on a paper cup of tea and let the truth make its own weather. When the termination letter hit the news, Kendra whooped. Isobel only closed her eyes and whispered, "Good." Carson didn't text. He drove. This time he didn't arrive with a curated speech or a posture borrowed from boardrooms. He arrived with rain on his shoulders and a face that looked like a door taken off its hinges. He found Isobel where the river kept its promises and didn't cross the last step until she nodded. "You removed him," she said. "He removed himself," Carson answered. "I just stopped pretending damage was strategy." He searched her face for exit wounds. "I'm sorry I let silence speak for me." She nodded once, hearing the thing he didn't make her drag out. "And Marisol?" "She made herself small," he said simply. "Reality did the rest." He exhaled. "None of it returns your mornings." The bait shop's upstairs room held the quiet they needed. Kendra hugged Isobel, eyed Carson the way a bouncer eyes a man who used to cause trouble, and left them with a look that said, "Earn this." The door clicked. Rain underlined the pause. Carson spoke first because fear had squandered its turn. "I built walls after Geneva. I called them standards and strategy and discretion. Truth. They were a place to hide from wanting anything I couldn't control. When the story came for you, I tried to protect you by not feeding it, and I ended up feeding it my backbone. That was the old me, the one who confuses restraint with love." He swallowed. "I love you. I love you in ways that make balance sheets look like bad jokes. I will make mistakes again, but I won't mistake you again." Isobel didn't move. She was listening the way carpenters listen for studs behind plaster. "What do you want from me?" "Permission to spend the rest of my life proving that loving me doesn't mean losing you," he said. "A chance to build with you in the open, audit me, correct me. Don't soften yourself to fit my shape. I'll do the reshaping." She walked to the window and pressed her palm to the glass, the river braided silver into gray. "You can't fix my past," she said. "I can honor it," he replied, "and pay forward what it taught you." She turned. The decision showed in her posture first. "If I say yes, I don't play the decoration. I don't smile for cameras that ask for my worst angle. You run your company, I run mine. Where they intersect, we negotiate. When the city demands a spectacle, we give it work instead." "Agreed," he said, relief and awe in equal measure. "And you stop thinking you're the architect of everyone's rescue," she added. "You're the man I chose. Be that." He stepped closer, slowly, as if asking a skittish animal to trust. "I am that," he said. "I am yours if you want me." She closed the last inch and placed her hand over his heart. "I want the man who postponed $1 billion to tell the truth before he earned me back," she said. "I want the man who fired the friend he needed because right costs. I want you." The kiss was not polite. It was not performed. It was the rejoining of a circuit, heat and light and the clean snap of current finding home. He tasted rain and resolve. She tasted apology and hunger finally named. Hands relearned the map they had traced in a different storm with a new tenderness edged by fire. Clothes didn't vanish. Walls did. He murmured her name like a new language. She answered with his like a vow. They broke only to breathe. He rested his forehead against hers. "Tell me what comes next," he said. She smiled. the kind that remembers survival and chooses joy anyway. We go downstairs and eat fried fish at a place with no tablecloths. You call legal and accept that we're poorer on paper and richer where it matters. I call Kendra and tell her the woman she backed didn't fold. Tomorrow we draft a joint piece about building with accountability. No pity, no sainthood. He laughed, uncomplicated and young. And tonight? Tonight, she said. We stop carrying this like a riddle and start wearing it like a ring no one can see. He kissed her again, softer, sealing it. Outside, the river kept moving toward the sea. Inside, two people who had tried not to need anyone learned the shape of needing and found it good. The city would keep whispering, let it. Their answer was louder without a sound. Morning light finds the glass walls without accusation. For years, they reflected a man I mistook for a strategy. Today, they hold someone I recognize. I walk the atrium with no entourage, nodding to the receptionist. I know her name now. We start the day the way we have for months, the values meeting. No slides. I say what I need to hear. We don't buy victories that cost someone else their home. Human impact first, profit second. We pass on any deal we can't describe to our children. Compliance has teeth and a heart. The audit team reports the new human cost rubric. A warehouse we liked failed the heat index threshold. We passed. A supplier corrected wage theft after our lawyers drafted a path that didn't crush them. The apprenticeship fund named for Tobias is oversubscribed. Engine kids with steady hands learning to keep machines honest. I sign a check and feel the world tilt the right way by a millimeter. Legal proposes language protecting whistleblowers beyond statute. I initial the page and think about how long it took me to learn that silence isn't virtue. We publish our first accountability letter. No burnished phrases, just what we got wrong and how we'll correct it. Analysts call it reckless. At lunch, I walk the floor with Isobel. She isn't a rumor. She is my equal. Her company remains her own. But we built a bridge, a venture arm she chairs that incubates firms our old doors ignored. She challenges my timelines, I challenge her budgets. We don't blunt each other's edges, we aim them together. We step into a room where interns sketch a safer bottling line. Explain it like I know nothing, I say. They do, and I learn. Isobel meets my eyes when one of them mentions her father's gloves and how they still smell like oil. Tobias sits with us then. The work says his name. News still tries to bait us with spectacle. I let the phone vibrate out of reach while a warehouse lead explains overtime drift. Later, the board approves the last bylaw change. Bonuses must weigh non-financial harm. We're done being efficient at harm. After hours, the building exhales. I drive, not to restaurants that always have a table, but across the river to a street that smells like rain after heat. Inside, the workshop we salvaged waits. Rafters sanded, concrete swept, ghosts addressed without erasing them. One workbench remains unrestored, Tobias's. The nick near the vise is still there. Flowers sit in a coffee can. Isobel is already here, sleeves rolled. Grease darkens her cheek. I offer the wrench she needs without speaking. She uses it, patience larger than leverage. The bolt yields with a small, perfect sound. We laugh like people who love the quiet parts. No cameras. Kendra texted that she won't answer for 2 hours unless the building burns. The river carries the day's heat to the bay. Favorite change this month? Isobel asks. 3, I say. We paid a small contractor early. We opened the apprenticeship to applicants without degrees, and we started telling people why a no is a no. I pause. The last one is mine. The old me hid behind discretion. The new you writes it down, she says. Keeps receipts for good. She pats the bench. He would like this place. I hope so. I reach into my pocket. The ring I've carried for weeks is simple, smooth as an honest sentence. The speech I wrote on the drive over evaporates. Good. Speeches are for rooms that don't know you. Walk with me, I say. We slide the big doors open. Evening leans inside. I thought I knew power, I tell her. Numbers aligned in my favor. Rooms that fell quiet when I entered. Then you looked back at me under a chandelier like I was a test worth running. You made me answer to the part of myself that wants to be chosen for something money can't buy. I opened my palm. I want to spend my life building what money can't measure with you. Will you marry me? She doesn't rush. She takes the ring like a tool she'll use every day and examines it, smiling. It's plain, she says. It's honest, I answer. She slides it on. It looks as if it has been waiting where it lands. One tear falls. She lets it. Yes, she says. But we don't turn this into content. Never, I say. We kiss like a seal on an agreement, gentle first, then fierce enough to erase the last cold corners of my old life. Later, we eat sandwiches on the floor and draft a note to the people who matter. Not a press release, not a photo, just a paragraph to our closest. We add a line about keeping our work separate where it should be and together where it makes each other better. Night takes the sky. We close the doors and leave the workshop in the soft company of its tools. On the sidewalk, I feel lighter than the day I made my first million. I drive us home without clearing the route. In the lobby, the security guard grins. Upstairs, we set the ring on the counter and brush our teeth at the same sink. Domesticity feels like an earned luxury. We crawl into bed and fit like an answer. I fall asleep knowing what I will do tomorrow. I will keep bending the company towards strength that doesn't require a casualty. I will keep refusing shortcuts that smell like smoke. I will keep loving her in the quiet, loud, only where truth demands it. A glance inside a ballroom used to be a story other people told about me. Now it is the instant I mark as the beginning of us choosing each other over the gravity of old habits. I am not an empire. I am a man who decided to belong. Do you believe a single glance can truly change destiny?